Hi everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter, and I'm here with a card video for you today. Today I'm going to be making a card featuring this stamp set. It's called the Tea Time stamp set. It's from Studio Calico's October release. I'm also going to be using some tag dies from Studio Calico and these 6-inch white doilies from Studio Calico. I have a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock cut to 4 by 5 1/4 already, and I'll set that aside because I'm going to start with stamping. Now I have my outline stamp mounted on a clear block here, and you can do this one of two ways. You could use some Post-it tape and mask off that sentiment that's in the center of this outline stamp, or I am going to use this Versamark pen. Now this acts exactly like the Versamark ink pad. It's a watermark pen. It also works for embossing really well, and I'm just going to trace or color in the part that I want to stamp, which is just the outline and not the sentiment. I'm going to be embossing this on some white cardstock, so I went ahead and prepped the surface with an EK Success powder tool, and then I'm going to add my gold embossing powder to the image that I stamped. Now, normally when you're doing a solid and an outline stamp, you would probably do your solid stamping first and then do your outline stamping, but I did not want the gold embossing powder to stick to maybe some partially wet ink of that solid stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and do that kind of in reverse order, and don't worry, that emboss acts like a resist, so there's no problem with it. I'm not going to cover up the gold. So you can see here I'm going back and I'm stamping that solid image. Now I stamped it once right over the outline right where it goes, and I'm going back and just adding some more ink around the edge of that teacup just to intensify the color around the edge, and then I stamped it right back over that image. So layered up two different of the solid images, one fully inked and the other one partially inked. So I trimmed that out with a pair of scissors, and then I decided that the middle part of that handle needed to come out, so I went back with an X-Acto knife to trim that out. For my sentiment, I am using the stamp set from the main card kit. It's called the Underground from Studio Calico's October release, and I'm using the two words that say "Hello, darling," and I just lined them up on my grid mat, and then I'm using my stamp press to pick those up. And I line up the lines on my stamp press with the lines on my grid mat to make sure I get that nice and straight. I'm going to be embossing this on a piece of vellum, so I went ahead and prepped the surface again with my EK Success powder tool and then stamped that on Versamark ink onto the vellum. I added the gold embossing powder and then just heat embossed it. And I left this kind of from the back, this angle, because it's really cool when you emboss on vellum, you can see it melting from the back. So I like to heat from the back first when I'm working on vellum. So now it's time to create a little tea bag to go in my teacup. And I am just taking a piece of vellum. This is another scrap piece of vellum, and I'm folding it in half, and you're going to see here why in a minute. And I'm using the third smallest, I think that's how you say it, die. It's the third one from either the biggest or the smallest. I don't know how you say it. And I'm going to line that up to where the bottom edge is just past the fold of my vellum. So I'm not going to cut through any vellum on that bottom. So once I run that through my Evolution die cut machine, you can see that that's what I'm left with there. I have the fold at the bottom, and then I have my tag pieces that I can open up. Now I need to make sure that this stays nice and sealed, so I'm using this Be Creative tape. This is the 1/8 inch, and I'm just putting some of that around the edge so that when I go to seal the contents inside, that it will stay nice and secure, and it's thin and barely visible when you get the vellum in there. Then I just added some mint hint sequins and some 24 karat sequins to the middle of that as my tea, because who wouldn't love a tea bag with sequins in it? And peeled off the backer of that Be Creative tape and then sealed up those sequins on the inside. And then there you have a little kind of shaker tag. We're going to make it look more like a tea bag here in just a minute. So I'm using a little bit of this twine from the Twinery. It has some gold kind of threading through it, and I'm just attaching it to my tea bag with my tiny attacher from Tim Holtz, and then I'll kind of set that aside. I'm going to mount the doily onto the card front using just a little bit of tape runner adhesive. I just added it to the center and then allowed it to kind of go over the edge of my card, and then I'm just trimming off the excess with a pair of scissors. Now, in the past, I've tried several ways of trimming those doilies off, and they're just too delicate, so really scissors are the best way to go. I trimmed down my sentiment piece, and then I wanted this to lift off the card like the teacup's going to, so I adhered it first to the teacup with a little tape runner adhesive, and then I added some foam adhesive to the back of my teacup, so both the teacup and the sentiment piece will be kind of lifted off, and that just creates a little shadow behind the sentiment piece as well. Now, when I held this up to the teacup, I thought the tea bag was a little bit long, so I went ahead, trimmed off the top of it, and then used my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper. This is the angle one, and I just created some new angles, and then I thought the shape at the top was just a little bit funny, so I trimmed a little bit more off, and then that ended up giving me the perfect size tea bag. I did have to slip a little piece of tape in there, but it worked out just fine. Now, to create the little tag at the end of the tea bag, I embossed a gold heart on just a little scrap piece of white cardstock and attached that again with a staple. And then I cut a slit using my X-Acto knife so that I could slide that tea bag to where it was kind of coming out of the cup. I left the twine long on purpose because I wanted to create some loops in this twine. So I got it exactly where I wanted it, and then I went back in with this Ranger matte medium, multi-matte, I don't know. It's linked in the description below. And I just added a little bit of that adhesive where the loops were and then used a clear block to kind of hold that down while it dried. For my card base, I used a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. It's cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4.25. And then I used my bone folder to make sure I got a really nice crease. And because that twine was a little damp still, I didn't want to flip it over, so I just added my foam tape to the card base itself and then added the card front to that. Now, I wanted to add some more sequins to this, so I'm just using a little piece of that foam tape backer to put my multi-matte medium on. And then I added some more sequins. These are the Mint Hint and the 24 karat sequins from Studio Calico, and I just kind of sprinkled those on the front of the card and then added a few to the teacup as well. Now I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of shimmer to this teacup, so I'm going in with my clear Wink of Stella brush marker and I'm covering the teacup. Now I was kind of careful to not brush back and forth too much because I didn't want my ink to bleed out. And that finishes my card for today. I think this would make an adorable get well card. Lots of fun, just kind of sending get well wishes or just a fun hello to your friend. I have links to all the products used in this project in the description at YouTube as well as over at my blog. And please visit me there for more information. That's sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a fabulous day.